We're going to move on to the sweet wines, and what any winery will tell you is that a lot of folks that come in and are young in their on their journey to wine appreciation prefer sweet wines in the beginning to dry wines. Sweet wines are much more approachable and much more familiar. They're more pleasant in many ways to the novice palate. And then there are a group of sweet wines that are devoted to the dessert wine category. This first one we're going to taste is made out of the Ceiba grape. This is a sweet iteration of the Ceiba grape, so it has more residual sugar. It's called Dulcinea. The literary buffs among you know that that was the name of Don Quixote's sweetheart. We just thought it was a great name for wine, hence Dulcinea. So I'm going to open the bottle. Pour. And we'll put it through the same process we normally do. So, this is a very, very light, straw-colored, clear wine. There's really not much gold in this at all. The initial nose is very, it's almost not there. And the secondary nose allows a little bit of alcohol and a tiny bit of dry wood to come out, believe it or not, which totally belies the flavor that I know we're going to find in this wine. Which is the delicious balance of a sweet, very modestly acidic wine. It has a lot of really delicious fruit. It has a very nice balance to it. There's no one thing that overpowers another. The alcohol doesn't overpower the fruit, which doesn't overpower the sweetness. Everything is really nicely balanced in this wine. This is another one that you could serve chilled on its own for folks just sitting around, or you could actually do what I consider to be the ultimate wine pairing, which is chilled Ceiba and chocolate-covered strawberries. I know that most people really hate chocolate-covered strawberries, but I like them. So if you're a fan of chocolate-covered strawberries, pair it with this wine. This also goes very well with some of the headier cheeses, because many times you like to balance a really heady, salty cheese with a really light and fruity wine. There's a famous pairing that's been down through the ages of Sauterne and Stilton. That's a real archetypal pairing that always works. So this wine also, with things that are of a fuller, more salty flavor, would be absolutely perfect. And like I said before, just to drink it on its own, you can't beat it. So that's Dulcinea. And now we're going to move on to a sweet red. So we're moving on to the La Brusca, which is a sweet red wine, which means it has more residual sugar than a dry wine. And just a word about how our wines are made. We grow our own grapes. We are an estate vineyard, which means that the wines are made from grapes grown here on the property. So a lot of the characteristics of the Pennsylvania soil, the Pennsylvania climate, are grapes. These are true Pennsylvania grapes. The La Brusca is made from Concord, which you see growing in profusion all around you. All of those grapevines you see on the side of the road hanging there, those are mostly American Concord. So La Brusca is a sweet wine. By this time in the tasting, I probably should be singing Neapolitan love songs at the top of my voice in an absolutely mellifluous tenor, but I'll spare everybody and we'll just continue with the wine tasting. I'm not a professional, as you can tell. So we're going to open the bottle. Concord grapes, as you know, are used to make Concord grape juice. So these are, when they're ripened, they're sweeter grapes. They don't make good table grapes, the ones grown wild, because they contain a lot of seeds. They contain a lot of seeds. So we'll give it a pour. And this has a lighter color to it. It's nowhere near a rosé, but it is definitely a light red. And if one looks at the color up against the white background, on the edges of this, it actually starts to approach the ruby. Not so much because the wine is aged, but just because it's a lighter wine that happens to be the color that this grape lends itself the way we make the wine here. So the wine is very clear and a beautiful ruby color. So the initial nose, once again, it's interesting because as it hits your nose, it's not only grapey, it's floral, it's perfumey. You get this beautiful flowery sensation all across the front of your nose. Gorgeous. We'll swirl it. And that releases a little bit more of the alcohol at the bottom of this, but also really concentrates that beautiful grape and floral nose that this has. Now this almost tastes like it has a little bit of frizz, a little bit frizzante. But this has a beautifully rich, grapey, slightly oaky flavor to it. There is a little bit of wood in the background here. And it's actually savory. It fills your palate. It just coats it beautifully with this really gorgeous, thick, savory flavor that just carries that grape flavor all the way down. There's a lovely, lovely aftertaste to this. So this also would lend itself to just drinking on its own, nice and chilled, and even not chilled. This is a wine you could have at room temperature and it's just lovely. Or you could pair this with desserts, any kind of a sweet dessert, or you could pair this also with slightly more, I'll say pungent, very flavorful cheeses, maybe goat cheeses, something along those lines. This would go very well with, because those flavors would balance off absolutely beautifully. This too, if you wanted to make a sangria with this, it would be a much more densely flavored sangria, but would be absolutely delightful. And as we said before, those of you who are devotees of Big Creek, we have a secret recipe we give only our most loyal customers. So this is the La Brusca, the sweet red, for those of you who have the tendency toward the sweeter wines and the desire for a sweeter wine. Something sweet on your palate. Beautiful.